Good evening, morning, afternoon, or night, depending on where you are, everybody. Welcome into the Earthquake 3D live stream. This is your host, Dutchsinse. I'm here representing the earthquakes around the planet. Guys, I'm also representing my viewers here in the United States who are just hanging on the edge of their seats right now, in case you don't know what's going on here in the country. It's November 8th, 2016. And we are in the midst of an election between two people, which everybody is very concerned about what's going on. You know where I stand. Don't drink the earthquake juice. That's going to be symbolic for years to come. Everybody, hope you're doing good in the chat. Good to see everybody in here scrolling by on the screen. I'm down here in my little bubble. I can make it bigger or smaller. I can make it bigger. You guys can see me a little bit better there. We'll go ahead and move it over here a little bit. There we are. We're floating around on here. Having a good time with that. And this is the 3D camera. Love that thing. So, all right. So, guys, what's going on? It looks like we had some earthquake activity today develop out in some areas. And I would like to first talk about what happened here in the United States for my viewers here in the U.S. Now, on the West Coast, we saw a 3.6 earthquake strike, and many stations reporting upper 3, and I would dare say it was an upper 3 because several stations reporting over that. They actually went up into the 4.0, mid-4 range, but they went with the low ball on this, which took it to 3.6, 3.7, somewhere in that range. Now, same time that happened, a swarm of 2s broke out down at Salton Sea. Right after that, within a few hours, a 3.7 struck over here in the Midwest. It started out as a 4. So just like the near 4 that struck on the West Coast, they downgraded it, whatever, down to 3.6. That was followed by a 4 or a 3.6 here in the Midwest at the fracking operations, but a different fracking operation about 100 miles away from the 5.0 that struck a day and a half ago. Now, you may remember a day and a half ago when the 5.0 struck. Let me get that on the map here. There it is. There's the 5. Then we'll take it down. There's the 3.7. So you see the 3.7 up at the Kansas-Oklahoma border, and I'll highlight it for you here. Okay, and look where it is in relation to the 5.0. Now, the reason a 4.0 or 3.7 struck about 100 miles away or more from the 5.0, this is what I called a super fracture. I had to actually create a term to describe what happens when one large earthquake strikes. It causes a shakeup at the other wells, sometimes up to 100, 200 miles away. This causes cracks in the casements of the tops of the other wells. This then allows for gas and water to release under pressure down in shallower bedrock layers, which causes other additional earthquakes in the 4.0 range or larger. That then shakes up other wells. And it's a domino effect where one earthquake causes a shake up at the other wells, causing another earthquake, causing a shake up at the other wells, and it goes on and on and on. That's why you got a 4.0 today. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? So, West Coast struck by a 3.7, Midwest struck by a 3.7. Now, let's get over into Europe. This is an area of main concern. Guys, I told you last night we talked about the 5s across Siberia, Uzbekistan, and Western India. And all 3 of those did not make it onto the feed for some reason. For some reason, that just disappeared. Didn't show up. Excuse me, let me get a sip of my coffee. Again, I told you guys my throat is killing me. I'm going to be up all night because of this. So, anyways, 5s striking across the Mideast, going up into Siberia, Russia. And we said last night we would know if that really happened if we see a new swarm breakout down here in South Europe going into Turkey. Well, today, about 10 different 3.0 earthquakes struck with about 10 different 2.0 earthquakes. Huh? That's a dramatic increase in earthquake activity across Greece and Turkey today. Same time that struck, we saw a 4.4 and a 3.9 strike back down here in Iran. Now, I've told you many times before, when Greece is struck, Turkey is struck, Iran is struck, it all builds up, adds together, and pushes to the west-northwest. Right along to the west-northwest is what? Well, it's central Italy. Now today, we saw the swarm die out to next to nothing in Italy. It was a few 2s. Then, all of a sudden, our swarm broke out down here in Turkey and Greece today with all the threes. Well, those threes added up immediately to multiple threes back in central Italy. So, threes down here added up to upper threes in Italy, mid to upper threes at the swarm location, and now a little bit west. See this? 3.3, little bit west. Now what's going on there? Well, there's lateral pressure transfer happening across the faults. Pressure is coming in from the south, and it's releasing at the weakest point. In this case, the weakest point was the 3.3 to the west. Now followed by a 3.3 in the past hour back at the swarm location. And that's kind of actually in a progression or a line. You see this here? Let me get the rings off entirely. Just look at the progression of earthquakes. Today's earthquakes. See how it's kind of a line or a progression across maybe 50 kilometers? Well, this mountain range here is the spot that rose 70 centimeters and fell 70 centimeters. So 70 centimeters of rise and fall all along this mountain range. What does this all mean? Well, yesterday we had a deep 2.6. You don't see it anymore, but it struck over here in Romania. This led me to issue the warning for a shallow 3.6 to 4.6. So we're topping out near 4.6 potential already with the deep earthquake that happened last night in Romania. And it again happened right at the bend in the craton between green and yellow or brown. That's the height elevation map, but it's also the edge of the European craton, the European plate. So, earthquake deep down below here struck yesterday, leading to a shallow 3.6 to 4.6 within 48 hours, and that's what's going to happen. Additionally, this 4.4 back here along the plate boundary, let me go ahead and open up a screen here for you guys to take a look. Let me turn on my display capture. Okay, and now take a look at the screen. I've shown this many times, but look where the earthquake is on the plate boundary. Okay? So, this is going to place pressure to the west, northwest. Where does it go into? Where does the plate boundary go into? It goes into central Turkey, right? But the plate boundary does not stop there. It carries on to the west, going right across South Greece and up into Italy. Okay? So, 4.4 over in South Iran goes across Turkey and up into Italy. Additionally, deep earthquake over in eastern Romania also pushes into Italy to the west. So, by tomorrow, I told you last night, we would know if new pressure came into Turkey. This would be on the doorstep of Italy by tonight. Well, now it's on your doorstep. The pressure's there. Now, you don't see all the earthquakes today because there's been over 50. The European feed only shows us 50 earthquakes. So, again, 10 different threes struck today. Well, 10 threes adds up to 1.4 already. You got another 4 back behind here, 4.4. Then you have a 2.6 striking in Romania deep, which can lead to a 4.6. So 10 threes equals a 4. You got a 4 back here, and you got the potential for a 4.6. That's plenty of 4 activity coming into your area to be causing a mid-range 4 to strike. And it's been 2 to 3 days now. How long has it been? 2 days? Where it's just been 2s and 3s at the most, topping out at 3.3, like I said, 3.3 here. So it's going to go up a whole notch. Okay? And it'll happen by tomorrow. This 4.4, the 3s, it's all right there. It's on your doorstep. It's already added up, and it's just going to take maybe just a few more hours. We should get off. Hopefully, it'll be a swarm. The swarm will carry on, and we won't see anything larger. But I have bad news for everybody. Everybody on the planet now. Everybody on the West Coast. United States. West Coast Central America. West Coast South America. Terremoto warning for my people in Spain and the people in Italy. Earthquake warning for everybody who's speaking English. Listen. With this many deep earthquakes happening within 2 to 3 days, guys, the whole Pacific has moved across the south. And I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I've only seen this happen maybe one other time, and that was at a time right after Japan had the mega quake. So one other time in the last 7 years have I seen the whole Pacific move like this in a day or two's time. What's going on? Well, you see the earthquakes raised high off the globe, happening across the entire southern hemisphere and going up to Japan. Well, these deep earthquakes are all happening well over 300 miles below the surface, some up to 400 miles, a tremendous distance. Okay, another earthquake, another 3.3, striking back in central Italy, by the way. That's picking up. It's going from 2s to 3s. It's going to go from 3s to 4s. Anyway, these deep earthquakes here, all across, this is 10,000 miles apart from the deep earthquake down here in Argentina, going up across California, Southern California, and Northwest California, going out to sea off the coast of Oregon, and connecting all the way across as the curvature of the Earth over to this deep 4.6. That's 10,000 miles across that's moved down below. And when I say down below, you have to understand there's areas, there's layers that go down towards the crust, through the crust, into the mantle of the Earth, towards the core. And where the core comes up through the mantle, there's an area of the upper mantle called the asthenosphere. It's just a complex word for the melted magma down below the plate. Well, what's happening is there's pressure coming up from the core, translating up through the liquid mantle very quickly, coming up and hitting the semi-melted magma in the asthenosphere below the plate, and the pressure's slowing down there. It's hitting resistance. When it hits the resistance down below the plate, it causes these deep earthquakes. But guess what happens? The pressure doesn't just stop where it hits the semi-melted magma. The pressure keeps going upwards and hits the bottom of the plates. When the pressure hits the bottom of the plates, it puts literal pressure on the underside of the whole plate, all around. And now you see these domes that I've got turned on here. This is an earthquake 3D function that shows the relative area affected. But I want you to imagine these domes of pressure down below the deep earthquakes. And what happens is, as the dome of pressure comes up, it displaces vast areas, several thousand miles across. Well, in this case, the whole Pacific plate, south, west, and north, has moved down below at least 300 to 400 miles, and it's pushing up on all directions. This is going to cause a tremendous amount of movement over the next several days. We're going to see a dramatic increase in earthquake activity. We're going to go from just 4s and 5s up a whole notch to 5s and 6s. Why 5s and 6s? Well, deep earthquakes cause shallow, larger earthquakes. Like I said, sometimes very far away. But the magnitudes they cause, a deep 4, for instance, can cause a shallow 5 to 6. A deep 5 can cause a shallow 6 to 7. 1 to 2 magnitudes larger from the deep earthquakes. Perfect example is over in Italy. 2 weeks ago, a deep 5.8 struck down below the Tyrrhenian Sea. That was followed by a shallow 6.8, which is the big earthquake that just happened in Italy. Now they downgraded it, whatever. It was actually 7.1 if you really want to go with what the original magnitudes that were reported were. But they went with 6.6, but deep 5.8 caused a shallow 6.8 in Italy just 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, whatever. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. So, that being said, these deep earthquakes all across the entire Pacific mean the whole Pacific plate is about ready to move. And it's moving now. But it's about ready to move at a shallow level. And with this amount of movement, we have to look for larger earthquakes to strike. And when I say larger, we have to go up a whole notch from where we would normally look at 5s, maybe a few 6s. Now we're looking for 6s, maybe a few 7s. That's how high we have to go. And when I say 7s, we have to watch in our prone areas, the areas where there's already signs that there could be a large earthquake striking. So we look to our silent zones on either side of our deep movement. Okay, so we have this deep 5.1 here, for instance. Well, we would look to the north and we will look to the south. Both areas will be hit. It's not a chance of whether or not one area is going to be hit over the other, just like over here in Japan. Both areas will be hit. So, to the north, our silent zone goes from the 4.3 that you see in central Peru up to the 3.6 in Colombia. That's the first silent zone. Second silent zone goes just to the south of the 5.1, in between the 5.1 and 5.9. So it's just a small little stretch in there, and maybe I should turn the rings down. Small silent zone in between those two spots. Then we have to watch the South Sandwich Islands, which is not a big deal. I've been talking about this for the last week. I even put a 7.0 watch out for this down here over this past week, and it's still not expired. We're still watching for it, but again, nobody lives there, so I don't think anybody cares really, but I'm just watching for it because of all the earthquakes creeping down the coast. So now that we have a deep 5 mixed in there, now that we're getting up into the 7 range, because the whole plate is moving, our silent zones are the spots to be hit next. And what are the silent zones again? Well, let's look at the last 48 hours. Take a look at it, guys. This is the last 48 hours of activity. So we have our deep earthquakes, and we go to a middle point, fulcrum point, for these earthquakes. And again, what does that take us into? Takes us right down into Papua New Guinea, going into Solomon Island, Solomon Sea. Pretty small little stretch in here. And we're watching for 1 to 2 magnitudes larger, 5.3 to 6.3, based upon the deep 4. Now, you also see how these are both raised off the globe, and they're kind of pointing towards Australia. If you were to connect these 2 points into the core of the Earth, I want you to imagine these 2 points connect down to the core of the Earth. There's a way for me to show that to you, actually. Let me show it to you. Okay, we can look through the Earth here. All right, this is on Earthquake 3D, and we can see the points that connect down, right? Now, here's Australia down at the bottom. Let me turn this so you can see it. Okay, here's Australia. Now see our deep earthquakes with the lines connecting down below? That's the core of the Earth where they meet. And you can imagine directly above that, where does that take us, guys? Well, it takes us again right into Australia. And what's already going on in Australia? Look, a 2.3 has already struck southern Australia. Now, I issued a warning no more than 2 hours ago telling Australia to watch out in central Australia for a potential larger earthquake to strike up to 5.3. Why 5.3? Well, we've got a 4.2 on one side, 4.3 on the other, both happening down below the Australian plate, and you can see the angle at which they come up, and the pressure is going to exert pressure up on Australia. It's just that simple. The middle point, the fulcrum point. Okay? Now, let's also turn on something here. Take a look down to the South Pole. See this? South of New Zealand, striking just near Antarctica. This is really strange. A swarm breaking out here. We haven't seen any activity here in, many, many months, if not a couple years' time back down here. Okay, maybe over to the east, yes, but here it's been maybe even years. So guess who's down there right now? John Kerry just arrived down in Antarctica yesterday, and he's staying for the next 2 to 3 days. John Kerry, Secretary of State. Yeah, weird. Okay, anyways, so that's what we're watching for. Again, we're watching in Australia for a 5.3 that should be striking central Australia within the next 3 to 4 days. I'm going to put a 4-day watch on it because these are really deep, and Australia is such a huge landmass. It might take a day or two for it even to develop upwards and outwards before it could even cause an earthquake. So again, keep watch. You have 2 deep earthquakes on either side, and it should put upwelling pressure right in the middle point. Now, also, I'd like to point out, Japan was struck, guys. We warned Japan. You remember last night we issued our warning for Japan. We talked about right along the coast. Now, you see a 4.2 here. The Europeans reported a 4.9 striking here, and the USGS didn't bother to report it at all. Japanese agency have it at a 5.0, 5.1. Now, you may remember we issued the warning, and the spot that we told you to watch was right here, and it now got hit. Now, the USGS doesn't have it. Whatever. You guys are welcome to go over to the JMA, look it up. Don't have to take my word for it, but it's the only earthquake to strike in the West Pacific, Northwest Pacific today. And that was a 4.9 to 5.0 in the spot we warned. Now they have a 4.2 there. Just letting you know, it's the same spot that we warned. It's just a lesser earthquake reported. It was a secondary earthquake off the 5 that hit. So what are the chances, right? The only spot in the Northwest Pacific to be hit is the spot we named last night to watch. Okay? So as we get up and around back over to the United States, you can already see 5s are fanning out all the way around the Pacific over the past few days with the new deep earthquakes involved. And we're seeing 5s pick up around the entire plate down to the south. We talked about it last night. All the signs are there right now that there should be at least a 5.0 striking on the coast, right along the coast of northwest California, going up into Oregon. Now, why 5? Well, let me get into it. Let me show you the past 24 hours of earthquakes for my people in California, my people on the West Coast. You guys always have warning signs. I explain them every night in my updates, but I'll explain it one more time so you know what to watch out for. Every time we're getting ready to see new large activity strike off the West Coast, specifically to the Northwest, your warning signs are your geothermal pumping operations begin to swarm with earthquakes. Secondly, dormant volcanoes begin showing swarms of earthquakes in areas in eastern California going across Nevada. Thirdly, you'll see fault zone movement happening at a shallow level between, let's say, the Hayward Fault to the north at San Francisco, down to San Andreas, across the Garlock, and what's occurring right now. Well, the Garlock Fault, you can see from California, or Southern California, across Santa Barbara, 1.3, 1.2, 1.7. Now, we talked about Santa Barbara and Ventura and Los Angeles being the spot to watch for a 3.5 to strike, right? Well, the area just northwest of Santa Barbara was struck by a 3.6. Right? So we warned Santa Barbara for a 3.5, and it's dead, 150 miles up the coast, a 3.6 strikes. That's a hit for me because it's Southern California. It's right next to the oil fields in San Joaquin. And, of course, it's been the largest earthquake to strike there in the past 2 weeks. How about that? Right? Well, anyways, all the signs are there. Now, I can go look these up if you need me to prove to you that there are volcanoes to the east, fault zones to the south, and geothermal pumping operations to the north, but that would probably take a good 15-20 minutes of our time. I know you guys are capable at this point of pulling the coordinates. You guys know how to do this, right? You go pull the coordinates for the earthquakes. Let's just give you one example so you know how to do it. First of all, you need to download a copy of Google Earth. It's free, guys. earth.google.com. No www, just earth.google.com. Go get it. Then you go to the USGS page, or you use Earthquake 3D like I do, and you grab your coordinates. You get your coordinates from the main page on the USGS. So just copy, go over to Google Earth. I'm just showing the new viewers, guys, just for the people here who are new. I know there's, at least 100 new people that come in a day or more. So zooming in on the area, here's the coordinates, right? Well, you always look within a few miles to see if there's anything standing out as odd or could be the cause of the earthquake. Do you see anything standing out as odd or could be the cause of the earthquake nearby? How about Volcano Peak? Now, I've shown it so many times before, these cinder cones here and the lava flows off them, but it's struck again by an earthquake. Now, this is just one volcano here, but you see the obsidian dome to the west, and you see all these smaller cones. Each smaller cone, here, let me bring it in at a slight angle. Okay, these smaller cones here, guys, each smaller cone stands for a new volcanic eruptive location. So each cone gives way to a new cone. It's pretty obvious, right? So earthquake swarm striking there, that's just one of many. That's just proof that each one of these, when you go look them up, you're going to find a volcano nearby. The only location over to the east, if you look it up, you won't find a volcano at, is the location where they're doing, or they've done, past nuclear tests. At Pa Rump, okay, we won't bother to show you that, it takes too long, but it's just a bunch of craters in the ground where they've done a bunch of underground nuke tests. They've fractured the crust there, and it's vulnerable to stress when there's extreme stress building off the northwest coast of California. What you have to imagine right now is there's a tremendous amount of stress building off the northwest coast of California again. Right now, it's displacing the entire plate down to the south, activating the geothermal pumping operations where humans have drilled down into a volcano and are injecting water. Also, it's moving at the volcanoes to the east, the ancient dormant volcanoes, displacing their ancient magma chambers. And the pressure comes up further, it hits the fault zones, moves the fault zones. Once it moves the fault zones, the pressure has nowhere to go. It backfills instantly up the coast, and within a few hours' time, you have a release, total to whatever it was pushing to begin with. And the total release at this point should be in line with the other areas around the Pacific that are releasing, which is at that 5.0 level. Once the 5 hits here, it's going to re-excite things over to the east, and we'll see a new swarm break out in Oklahoma within the next 48 hours. You're going to go back up in Oklahoma, guys. I hate to break it to you. Okay? So, that all being said, we only have a few other areas to look out for, and that would be Central America and South America. Let's quickly get into that. Okay, let me turn back on my combined feed here. Let me get a sip of my coffee. Oh, yeah. Much better. Okay. That's my earthquake juice, guys. It's not their earthquake juice. Don't drink their earthquake juice, whatever you do. Whatever you do, do not drink the earthquake juice that's being drank by Hillary Clinton's top advisor. Man, that's some bad stuff. All right. So, and it's no joke. Go look it up, man. You wouldn't believe what they're drinking on earthquake nights. Drinking this stuff on earthquake night. Oh, it's so unscientific, man. So unscientific. It's like hogwash. It's like finding out that people are, doing stuff to their bodies to, stop an earthquake. It's so unscientific. Anyways, Central America, South America. We almost have to go check the eruptive reports for today because I didn't bother doing that before I got on. So I couldn't tell you if there's been any new eruptions in South America or Central America today to justify the silence that we're seeing across Central America. I would dare say there's most likely been a few eruptions, and these eruptions might relieve some of the pressure, but I don't know. I have to go look. Let's go see. So real time, let's open this up. You guys can see everything here. Okay, here's our volcanic activity worldwide, 8th of November. Oh, well. Okay, Shivulek, of course, that's been erupting. Suwanee-Zajima, south of Japan in the Ryukyu Islands, that erupted. Ducona, that erupted. But look, Santa Guido and Fuego and Turrialba and Nevado del Ruiz all sent off volcanic ash advisories, flight advisories, meaning large blast, or at least enough to send ash clouds up to warn airplanes. So let's show you where Guatemala and Costa Rica and Peru are. Okay, Guatemala is south of Mexico right here. Okay, this is Guatemala. Then we get down through Nicaragua, Costa Rica, just south of Guatemala. And then we get down to Colombia, Nevado del Ruiz, here erupting. And then we get down to Peru, which is, of course, the new eruption happening down here at South Peru, next to, it's Sabancaya volcano, next to Ubinas, which erupted last week. So, that explains the lack of earthquakes. The only spot to get struck was central South Mexico, right along the coast by 4.1. That was today. How about that? We talked about that last night. Okay, so new eruptions all the way across here. That's a dramatic increase, isn't it, guys? Well, gee, I wonder why that happened. Why do we have a dramatic increase in volcanic eruptions today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was all the deep earthquakes I talked about last night? Now, don't you think it's coming over here in the West Pacific, too? You bet your bottom dollar it's going. I can't believe I just said that. You bet it's coming, and it's coming soon. That upwelling pressure is not only going to hit Australia, but it's going to hit those volcanoes nearby. I didn't even talk about that, but you'll see a dramatic increase in Indonesia, going up into Philippines. Man, we'll have multiple new reports of pretty large volcanic blasts, I would dare say, from Japan south through the Philippines into Indonesia over the next few days. Now, which volcanoes? I'm not a volcanologist, and I'm not into forecasting volcanic eruptions, guys. All I can tell you is that the halfway points are the spots that are struck by the seismic pressure, and so if we look at a halfway point and there's volcanoes there, you need to look there. And maybe we should get into volcano forecasting at some point. But if we get a volcanic eruption that happens in the middle of a silent zone, we can't discount it. We certainly can't discount it. So just look at it, watch for the eruptions to increase because of these new deep earthquakes all the way around the Pacific. South Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, over the last few hours. Here, I'll spin it up real fast so you can really see it. I mean, Southern Hemisphere, look, I mean, the whole thing's moved today. Across 10,000 miles. The point from over here, these are on the exact opposite side of the planet. So, I mean, what does that mean? It means the entire southern portion of the planet, Southern Hemisphere, moved on all sides. We don't normally see that. So it's dramatic. It's dramatic. Now, for South America, this means the potential for that larger earthquake that I was talking about. Again, in the middle of the silent zone, between these 2 points, could go up to 2 magnitudes larger, 7.1. Could. Now, you hope for less. You hope for a swarm. We always hope for less. You hope I'm wrong. But, I mean, like in Italy, you hope you're wrong. But how many times, I mean, each time we're looking for the movement to strike, it's been hitting within that time frame. But, again, guys, it's better to be prepared, right? So you know to look for a 5 on the West Coast and follow that up with just a little bit less, let's say a 4.8. You know, if a 5 strikes on the West Coast, let's look for a 4.8 to 4.9 to strike in Oklahoma within a day. So watch first to the West Coast. As soon as you watch the West Coast, you will see it happen. Back and forth like a ping pong match. First the West Coast is struck, then the Midwest is struck, then over to the East Coast, then it goes back to the West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, back to the Midwest, or back to the West Coast, Midwest, East, West, and it always goes from west to east, whether you're in the U.S., Central America, or South America. And overseas, it does the exact same thing, only opposite. Goes over to the west, over towards Europe. Every single time. Follows the plate boundary. Pressure, the deep pressure coming up from down below, it makes sense. When the deep pressure is coming up from down below, probably one of the first things it hits are the magma chambers embedded deep down into the crust. The second thing it's going to hit will be man-made pumping operations drilling thousands of feet down into the crust. Same depth as the man-made drilling operations is the plate boundaries. Several thousand feet down, but above the bottom of the crust. Then you have your fault zones going out across the top. Shallow fault zones going up to the surface, giving you the surface deformation and the cracks in the ground and that kind of stuff. But the plate boundaries are much deeper. So, as the pressure comes up, what's it going to hit first? It's going to hit the magma chambers and the plate boundaries and cause movement. And that's exactly what happens all around the planet. And it's all disturbed by these deep earthquakes in the Pacific. Very rarely do you see deep earthquakes occur anywhere else other than in the Pacific. Dare I say, the only other places that we've seen deep earthquakes occur in succession of one another is over South Europe, going over to Romania. Turkey, South Europe, Romania, Mediterranean is another spot where we see deep earthquakes. Now, maybe that they are not reporting deep earthquakes here in the United States at all. It might be. It very well may be, guys, that they're incapable of reporting deep earthquakes, or they're not reporting deep earthquakes in the United States at all. Like they're cutting it off at 10 kilometers and not reporting anything below that. Maybe, I don't know. I read an article a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, talking about how they're detecting deep earthquakes down below Southern California using a new measurement technique. And up until this point, they were incapable of detecting deep earthquakes in California. And they think the deep earthquakes might be involved with the shallow earthquakes. This is them talking 2 weeks ago, guys. But that they're not showing the deep earthquakes on the charts. So if we have a couple 100-kilometer deep earthquake here, and they're not showing it to us, well, that'll play into the earthquake forecast, whether or not we're right or not. You know what I mean? So the fact that they might not be reporting them, or say they can't, that's their own article saying they couldn't. We can't report the deep earthquakes because we can't detect them. Their words. So that's Caltech, by the way, saying that. California Technical Institute of Technology. Or California Institute of Technology saying that. Caltech. Can't detect the deep earthquakes. Okay, sure. So are we the only spot on the planet that doesn't have deep earthquakes? Or are there deep earthquakes occurring there that we're just not seeing, that are playing into our earthquakes on the West Coast? What if there's a bunch of deep ones and zeros happening there? Well, deep ones and zeros will lead to shallow twos and threes, right? Think about it. If a deep earthquake will cause a shallow, larger earthquake, a deep one will cause a 2 to 3. Shallow. Well, we're getting 2s and 3s. Shouldn't there be some deep 1s and 0s? Yeah, there should be. And in my opinion, they're just not showing them to us because they say they can't. So, that all being said, Europe, you now know what to watch for. Going into tomorrow, you guys need to watch for that mid-range 4 to strike as a result of the 4s back behind across Iran, also striking a swarm of threes, striking across Turkey and Greece. Going into tomorrow, so by tomorrow night, my time, 24 hours from now, we will reassess where we are. It should strike today, somewhere in the mid-range 4, and right in the middle of our swarm location, central Italy. Okay, so that's what you watch for there. These new deep earthquakes, they're going to fan out, and that's going to cause a whole new round of pressure within another 72 hours to spread over to Europe. So when we get into, let's see, tonight's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, by Friday night, we should have a new round of pressure coming in, like at least equal to what struck today in Greece and Turkey. So today we had the swarm of threes and a 4 back over in Iran. Well, it'll happen again, but it may be larger. We'll have swarm of 3s and 4s back here in Turkey and Greece, and 5s back across Iran. We'll go up a notch. And that's guaranteed off these deep earthquakes. We're going to go up a notch, turn it up a notch. The whole thing, the whole planet. There's no way out of it. So I'm warning you now. I'm not issuing the warning lightly. You need to watch. If I am 100 miles off, 100 here on the coast, it'll strike on land. And if a 5 strikes on land, you're talking broken objects in your house, cracked facades on the fronts of your nice houses in California, log cabins knocked, plumbing breaking, street damage maybe, 5. If I'm 1 magnitude off and it goes up to 6, oh, if I'm 1 magnitude off and it goes down to 4, oh yeah, everybody's okay, they're cool. But if it goes up, if I'm wrong by 1 magnitude and I'm wrong low, and it goes to a 6 and it strikes right near land or on land, right at the coast, that will scare people. That will knock things down. That'll really shake things up for Northern California if it strikes near land or on land. So I issue these warnings very seriously, and I expect you guys to take it serious when you warn the people in California. Let them know my past track record. Let them know, say, look, he's called for California so many times, and every time it hits, so watch for it. You've got a couple days warning here, so you can get the warning out to people. Same with over in Italy. You can still warn people. You can say, look, by tomorrow we'll see a mid-range 4, and in the next 3 days, by Friday, we're going to have a new round of pressure coming in. Get ready for this weekend. You know, and just put the word out that way. Say, look, get ready for this weekend. It's coming in again. Just like storms. You just got hit with storms in Italy with the tornado and all that good stuff. Look at your radar station, by the way. Look at your radar station in Rome, guys. I'm not going to get into it here, but look at your radar station in Rome if you want to find out why a tornado formed in Rome. Now, let's just end it here with telling you guys this. I appreciate everybody who supported me and put the information out to the world. I couldn't do it without you. I'm going to save this update right now with the warnings in it and everything, and we'll save it on my channel, and you guys can share it once it's saved, so you can get the warning out. You don't just have to share the live stream. I'm going to save this whole update right now as a video on my channel, and then you guys can go and share it away on Twitter and Facebook and put it out to the people who need the warning. People in Italy need to know that by this coming weekend, you're going to go right back up to the top. And when I say to the top, I mean you're going to trump out, you're going to trump out all these other earthquakes. You're going to beat out all these other earthquakes. You're going to increase in magnitude, and you're going to increase in frequency. Magnitude is the size of the earthquake. Frequency is the number of earthquakes that happen. So the number of earthquakes is going to increase, and the magnitude in those earthquakes is going to increase by a full notch, a full magnitude. Okay? I wish I had better news for you guys. I really did. Same with on the West Coast, man, and in the Midwest, because, I mean, Oklahoma's going to get struck again. That sucks. I may have to go down there. I've come up with an invention. Okay, I'm going to end the video here, but I got to tell you. I've come up with an invention, an idea. I haven't made it yet, but it'll work, okay, to alleviate the pressure at the frac wells. Allow for them to keep all their wells. They don't have to shut them down. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is install this device that will relieve the pressure from the well when incoming pressure occurs. As that happens, it will generate electricity, clean electricity, that goes onto the grid. It'll knock everybody's power bill down. The gas companies will still get paid more. Actually, they will get paid more for their gas doing this than they would if they were trying to pipe it off. It's a win-win for everybody. It stops the earthquakes. It stops the groundwater pollution because the fracturing stops. You can still frack, get the gas, so the companies are all still good. Your power bill goes down. The national electrical grid is actually aided, and they don't have to build any nuclear power plants. Also, it'll stop coal-fired plants, which is everybody's worried about that pollution. Fine. We'll burn it with clean gas. So I have an invention to alleviate the stress, make a lot of money for the gas companies, and a win-win for everybody. Okay? There is a way. And I'll put that out if he wins tonight. I'll put that out with the jet engine if they win, right? Okay. So that's my offer to the world. I've got a few things up my sleeve that I'm willing to give out if the right thing gets done. Okay, so everybody else, word up to everybody. I hope you're paying attention to what's going on in the election. I don't know. Anybody know? Anybody know where we are in the election? I'm looking in chat right now. I see Trump at 232, Clinton at 209. You know, it's really weird about the Clintons, guys. They're connected to this earthquake stuff with the earthquake juice. The earthquake juice. They drink this stuff. Okay? But they're connected. Now, this is weird. It's part of a voodoo ritual. They drink this earthquake juice, which is a mixture of gross bodily fluids, on earthquake nights. This is them, the big people, Hillary and Podesta. This is their own emails. Now, it's part of a voodoo ritual. They call it art show or a performance art, but it's a voodoo ritual. Now, get this. Haiti, the earthquake. Clintons, Haiti, earthquake. 1994, Northridge earthquake. Clinton, earthquake. Oh, Arkansas. Arkansas, where they're from. That's where the fracking earthquake started. Fracking earthquake started here, not in Oklahoma. They started in Arkansas, baby. So, these people are tied into earthquakes somehow. I don't know. It's really weird. Oh, and John Kerry. John Kerry down there tonight. Antarctica. Now Antarctica struck by an earthquake. When Obama went to Hawaii, Hawaii struck by an earthquake. When Obama went to Thailand, Thailand struck by an earthquake. When Obama's daughter went to Uake, Mexico, Uake, Mexico struck by a 7.9 earthquake. There's something going on. I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. Let me get a sip of my coffee. You can tell I've had a little bit too much. I think I'm starting to perspire. Okay, so I'm getting nervous. It's towards the end of the night. We're hanging on a fight against the New World Order, the real deal. This is not like the fake New World Order that you hear about in Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory. By the way, anybody ever see the movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson? It's a famous movie. Julia Roberts, Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is this crazy conspiracy theorist guy, right? And he's getting chased by the government, right? Well, guess what the whole plot of the movie is? The whole plot of the movie is Mel Gibson's character says, this is, again, in the time of Clinton and Bush, so that's when the movie came out, that the U.S. government has an earthquake weapon and that they launched it into space and that they use it to create earthquakes and that the president had his life threatened and was under threat and that they were going to create an earthquake using the earthquake weapon from space. That was the plot of Mel Gibson's conspiracy theory. Can you believe it? I couldn't believe it when I watched it again. I was like, what? I go, oh my God, earthquakes. Okay, that's crazy. So take it from me, guys. There are no coincidences. Everything is a synchronicity. Okay, so much love to everybody. Much love. Where are we at? Somebody give me a count. One more time. Give me a count in the chat right now. Someone who's listening, give me a count into this chat room now so the Russians can influence the election. I am Michael Janich. I am the Russian. Okay, what do we have? What do we have? No new tax breaks, no new jobs. Hey, I'm gonna make my What? 7.3 in Turkey. What? 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 No. No, 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 no. That can't be right. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see 7.3 in Turkey, guys. Oh, earlier today. Oh. Oh, God, you freaked me out. Okay, I really freaked out there. I was like, whoa, I don't know. Okay, that was obviously erroneous. Check it out. New Zealand struck north of New Zealand, 5.3. Just heads up. The 4.3 has caused a shallow 5.3. 4.3 leads to 5.3. There you go. I mean, that's so exact, too. I mean, check it out. About 1,000 kilometers away, we have a 4.3 started this. Upwelling movement. I'm going to turn on the shell angle. Look at the shell. Where the shell on the 4.3 goes out to. Right to the perimeter of where the 5.3 struck. How about that? So one's right on the edge of the other. The 5.3 just struck, the 4.3 struck earlier today. So upwelling pressure takes 24 to 48 hours. I always talk about that. And it leads to 1 to 2 magnitudes larger. Perfect example right now, New Zealand. Pressure transferring out. I would dare say we will also see a 5.3 to 6.3 strike out to the west at the Solomon Islands near a triangular bend. Again, right in here, Eastern Solomon Islands. Watch out for it. Again, 5.3 to 6.3. It's already hit New Zealand, just transferred up. There it is, shallow, hugging the earth, which is, again, close to the surface, as opposed to deep, which is raised high off the globe. Glad we stuck around for it. There it is, guys. That's a good way to finish it up right there. You get to see it happen in real time before your eyes. So if you're in New Zealand, look, you had a 4.3 to your north. What do you expect? A 5.3 at least, right? Okay, so be safe. Have an earthquake plan ready. Look at the earthquakes around the planet. They lead to one another. They do. And I don't have to tell you that. You can watch it. That's why I show you the last 48 hours of earthquakes. So that you can watch for yourself, determine the silent zones, see the magnitudes coming your way, and you won't be caught off guard. Don't be scared. Be prepared. For real.